New Zealand is a really small country. In total, we are a team of 5 million. And every year here in New Zealand, 8,000 people are reported missing, and more than 60 people die at the hands of violent offenders. That is a lot for such a small population. Kirsty Bentley was one of those people. She disappeared on December the 31st in 1998. She was out walking the family dog Abby on the banks of the Ashburton River. The day after she went missing, the family's dog Abby was found. She was tied to a tree near the river, and Kirsty's underwear were located nearby. To date, no one has been arrested for her death, and this case remains one of the highest profile unsolved crimes in New Zealand. Hello and welcome back to Crime, Mystery and Mayhem with Kat. If this is your first visit to my channel, hello, welcome. It's great to have you here. Here on my channel I talk about true crime stories. I find them interesting and I'm quite intrigued as to why some people do the horrible things that they do. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel because it would really help me in my attempts to grow my channel. I cannot do this without you guys. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about a New Zealand case. As we know, I am from New Zealand. If you didn't know, I'm from New Zealand. Maybe you thought I was Australian, but no, New Zealander. Our cases don't tend to get much attention outside of our country, which is quite sad, and this case is one that I remember quite well, so I wanted to talk about this case today. Today I'm going to be talking about the disappearance of 15-year-old Kirsty Bentley. But first, there is a warning. I will be talking about the death of a teenage girl. I usually go quite into detail with my stories, so if this is something that may trigger you, please click out and come back with a different case. And with that, let's jump into today's story. So Kirsty Bentley was born on the 18th of January in 1983 at the Christchurch Women's Hospital in New Zealand. Kirsty's parents were Jill and Sydney Bentley, and she had an older brother called John. Kirsty was 15 at the time of her disappearance. Her mum said that she was a happy child growing up who had a family that absolutely adored her. Her mum said that she was vibrant, honest and compassionate, and she was confident and direct with the people that she knew, but she could be a little bit shy and reserved with people she didn't know, as most of us are when we're teenagers, right? She went to Ashburton College, and at school Kirsty really enjoyed drama class and she was really creative. She loved to write poetry, and she also had a close-knit friend group. Also, Kirsty was dating a boy that she knew from school. So on the 31st of December 1998, the day that Kirsty went missing, at about 10:30 a.m, Kirsty met up with a friend. So they met up at the Ashburton Library. They then went over to the shops, they did a little bit of shopping, and then they went and had some lunch. So they had lunch at McDonald's at around midday. Once they were finished, her friend's sister picked them up and dropped Kirsty off to her house at about 2:30 p.m. When she walked into her house, her brother let her know that her boyfriend called. He left a message and asked to give him a call back. So this is back in the day before teenagers had cell phones. It was a completely different time. Like there's aspects of it where like I preferred it, but also it is really, really, really handy having a cell phone. We relied on landlines to contact our friends back in the 90s. I remember our phone at home it had this really long cord, so I would stretch it to my bedroom to call my friends. I'd actually get in trouble because I was on the phone for too long. Like I'd be on the phone all night. My dad was like, "Oh, someone might be trying to call through," and da da da. So yeah, the 90s were great for me, not so much for Kirsty and her family. So anyway, Kirsty gave her boyfriend a call. This was at 2:38 p.m, but he wasn't home, so she left a message. We know this because the phone records did show that she made a call to her boyfriend at this time. Then she decided to take Abby, the family's Labrador fur baby, for a walk. She enjoyed taking her doggo for walks and would often take her out when she was feeling bored or just felt like she needed some fresh air. She left home at around 3 p.m. with Abby, and she was seen by a neighbour walking past at 3:05 p.m. with Abby in tow. But from here, we don't really know what happened. Kirsty's boyfriend got her message and he called her back at 4:30 p.m. But he was told by Kirsty's brother that she wasn't home. Her brother didn't actually realize that she had left, and it was at around this time that he realized that she wasn't there, and also the dog wasn't there. So he just assumed like they've gone for a walk. At about 5:15 p.m, Kirsty's mum, Jill, she got home from work, and her brother John told their mum that she wasn't there and she has not returned after she's been gone for quite a while. Jill gave Kirsty's boyfriend a call. Maybe he knew where she was, but he said he didn't know. That's when Jill decided that she needed to go and look for her child. So she walked the same path that Kirsty would have taken that went down to the Ashburton River. Kirsty did this same path every time she took the dog for a walk. But she couldn't find her daughter anywhere, and she started to get really anxious about this whole situation. Something felt very wrong. Mother's intuition maybe, but she felt it in her bones that something was wrong. So after walking the path and looking around, Jill headed back home to talk to her son. They needed to, make a plan. So they decided that they were going to wait until 6 o'clock before they went back out for another search, just in case Kirsty showed up. She may have just been running late. Maybe she got sidetracked. Teenagers do. My daughter does all the time. So they waited for a bit, but John, he was quite, anxious about the whole situation, so he decided to go out. This was before 6 o'clock. He wanted to go find his sister and the dog. Oh, pardon me. He wanted to go find his sister and the dog. Shortly after, Kirsty's dad, Sid, he got home from work, and Jill told him that their daughter had not come home. And it had been hours. So he decided that he was going to call the police immediately. The police came over to talk to Kirsty's parents, and they started a search. They actually jumped right onto this, really quick. The search rapidly grew more intense throughout the evening, with a mixture of police, family members, and friends canvassing the area. They were looking for Kirsty. These people searched all night long. Kirsty was out all night long. That would be terrifying for any parent. They could not find her. Then another search started at 8 o'clock the next morning. This time, they found something. At around 10 a.m, the family dog Abby was found. She had been tied up to a tree in a patch of dense foliage beside the Ashburton River. The thing is, this particular area, it was searched thoroughly, and they hadn't seen Abby. What's going on? Then they found 2 items of clothing. These clothing items were found quite close to where Abby had been tied up. They were a pair of underwear and boxer shorts. So the crucial question, one that dominates this complex case, was whether this scene had been staged. The police did feel like it may have been staged, and if so, why? So the man who found Abby said that he noticed a trail of flattened, damp grass leading off the track and found a small clearing with Kirsty's dog tied to a tree. As he approached Abby, she remained silent. He said that she looked so sad, and she wasn't barking or jumping for the dog was just stunned, like she'd seen something. But when this man mentioned Kirsty's name, her ears stood up. What? So the dog most likely had seen something really bad. The way Abby was tied to the tree would have meant that she would have been unleashed before she was tied up. The thing is, Abby didn't like strangers, and she was sometimes aggressive to strangers. And they thought at the time that it must have been someone that this dog knew who'd done this. They don't know. Apparently, the underwear that were found, they didn't have any marks on them, like you would think that they would, and the shorts didn't, like grass or dirt or whatever. Was this a stranger abduction, or was it a person who knew Kirsty and her dog? Elements of this scene suggested an attempt at deception. There was no evidence of a struggle. Kirsty's underwear, they did not show any sign of contact with the ground. Her shorts, there was nothing. Police and locals with their dogs had also scoured the evening before the area, and they couldn't find anything. You would think if they've got their dogs, a dog is going to know if another dog is there, right? They hear that stuff. Kirsty's mum believed that if Abby had heard them calling, she would have barked. But maybe Abby was in such shock that she just ignored them. I don't know. I don't think so. We don't know. If only animals could talk, right? Yeah. They would have so many tales to tell. On January the 3rd, police tied her up in the same spot. Yeah, I know. Re-traumatize her, but they did it to see, if they called her, what would she do? So they tied her up and they went, off the track, and they called her, and apparently she didn't make a sound. She was also tested for drugs, but nothing was found. So if the dog and the underwear were put there later by a random killer, they were taking a huge risk. If they couldn't bear killing the dog as well as Kirsty, they could have just released the dog, anywhere. But what would be the purpose of staging a scene? Maybe it was not a stranger. Maybe the culprit was somebody that they knew. Maybe they were trying to deflect attention by staging this scene. The police did look at the family as potential suspects and started to look seriously at Kirsty's dad and also her brother. A considerable amount of time was spent looking at the family dynamics. And those dynamics, they did not show a particularly happy family. So Sid was brought up in Workington, an iron smelting town in the north of England. He became an engineer in the Merchant Navy, and his ship arrived at Timaru Port, where in 1973 he met Jill. Timaru's in New Zealand. She was training to be a nurse. So they went out for a week, and then Sid's ship sailed away. So Jill, she received a letter from Sid, and she was actually quite surprised by it, and he was proposing to her. So that was quick. They got married in South Canterbury in 1976, then Sid went back to sea. By the end of 1977, Jill had joined Sid in England, and John was born there in 1979. Sid enjoyed being at sea for months at a time, but he agreed to settle down for the family, so the family could be together. He got a job as an engineer in a plastics factory in Ashburton, and that's around the time Kirsty was born. Kirsty was a kind and caring girl. Sid doted on her, but their relationship did become a bit more colder as she entered her teenage years. The teenage years can be a struggle. I know that. I've got a 17-year-old daughter. It's quite difficult at times. So Jill blamed this relationship kind of struggle on his heavy drinking, which sometimes led to angry outbursts. And in 1993, he joined Alcoholics Anonymous and spent time at a rehabilitation clinic in Hanmer Springs. Sid had been drinking the night before Kirsty went missing, and he'd driven up to Christchurch the next day. So Sid, he said something a little bit stupid. He said, I put it this way, I could put away a 40-ounce bottle of scotch and drive to Christchurch without any problems. Like, oh my God, come on, Sid, you should not have said that. But yeah, okay. So yeah, he drinks and he's a bit of a brute, but does that make him a killer? Like, would he kill his own child? I don't know. What do you guys think? Jill said that they were not an average happy family, but they were still a family. She didn't have a close relationship with her husband, but they did have a routine. I guess it was a marriage of convenience. John, the son, he had gone away to university, but he did come home for the weekends. John was a little bit of a loner. He liked to play video games, kind of kept to himself. And at the time of Kirsty's disappearance, John and her had just started to develop a mutual respect for each other. One that, comes with age. So they're both getting older, and they would watch telly together. Having said that, they were also chalk and cheese, like so different. Also, Sid's alcoholism was a problem, but Jill put up with it because he worked really hard and he was a very good provider. He was in his own foggy world, and for the large part, Jill didn't know what was going on in his mind. The marriage, I'm not going to say it was falling apart, but it was just, yeah, it's kind of sad. He could be bitter towards his wife because she didn't want a close relationship, if you know what I mean. No one reported seeing Kirsty on the track that led along the river. So, yeah. Over the next 16 days after Kirsty went missing, police and volunteers, they searched Ashburton for her. And initially, the search focused on the Ashburton township. Then it expanded out to cover a much larger area of Canterbury. Also, the New Zealand Army sent troops. So they sent troops from the Burnham military camp to help search for this 15-year-old girl. Like, that's amazing. Yeah. Then on the 17th of January 1999, 2 men in the Camp Gully area, which is about 40k away from Ashburton, they found the body of a really badly decomposed person. This was Kirsty. Her body was found lying at the bottom of a steep embankment covered in a thin layer of branches and leaves. She had been placed in the fetal position and was fully clothed in what she had last been seen wearing, with the exception of the underwear that had previously been found at the scene of her disappearance. So a large paddock was at the top of an embankment above her, and the location was close to State Highway 72. This is a part of the Inland Scenic Route. The area that she was found in is known for being used to grow illegal cannabis, and the men who found her were actually at their cannabis patch. So initially, when they found her, they were reluctant to call the police. They didn't want to get in trouble. But then they saw on the news, about Kirsty, and yeah, they kind of changed their mind and called the cops. So after Kirsty was found, police went in, they closed the scene and ordered a no-fly zone over the area as they conducted their investigation. So they conducted an extensive scene examination over several days and took plaster casts of tire tracks in the area. This was January, and that's our summer. It is freaking hot here in January, which did cause Kirsty's body to decompose quite rapidly. She'd been out there for 17 days. She did not, it wasn't good. When she was found, excuse me, her body was in an advanced state of decomposition, which makes the investigation a little bit more harder. Once they got her body out of this area, she was then flown to the Christchurch hospital where a post-mortem was conducted. And it took 3 days before dental records were used to formally identify her. During her post-mortem, they found that Kirsty had been killed by blunt force trauma to the right side of the back of her head. And these blows to her head were severe enough to really badly fracture her skull. And the pathologist determined that she would have died pretty quick after she was hit. The police initially withheld her cause of death from the public for operational reasons, which they do quite often here in New Zealand. We don't really get told too much at the beginning of an investigation, or really after. Like, it's quite difficult to do a New Zealand case because a lot of them they don't tell. Like Lena, the girl, the Down syndrome girl I was talking about in another story, like, it was so hard to find information about the case. Anyway, the pathologist also believed that Kirsty was killed soon after she went missing, and that it was likely that she was placed in the Camp Gully area that same night. This was because of the examination of her stomach contents and the state of her body. The police reached out to the public for help. They asked for help regarding vehicles that may have been seen in the area at the time. They also asked for cannabis growers to come forward if they had seen anything. Yeah, they're probably not going to, but they weren't going to make any arrests apparently in regards to the pot growing, because this case was more important than, growing cannabis. Members of the public, they did ring up, but nothing useful was found. So Kirsty had her funeral, and it was held at St. Stephen's Anglican Church in Ashburton on the 25th of January 1999. And between 500 and 700 people attended. Her funeral was so close to her 16th birthday. It's so sad. After the funeral, Kirsty's body was cremated, and her ashes were sealed in a steel urn. The urn was then buried in a nice memorial garden at the family home. So media coverage of this case was huge. This case was on all our news channels and front pages of our newspapers. This case is still one of the most highest profile case in unsolved case in New Zealand. Like, it is a big one. Yes, the case going viral here in New Zealand was good, but it was also in a way not so good, because the intensity of the coverage did cause for some not so truthful people to come forward. Also, Kirsty's family were being harassed by the media. They all wanted interviews. They were grieving, but the media, they don't seem to care. They're real pushy and they just want their story. Also, the guys who found Kirsty's body hadn't actually immediately reported it to the police. They had gone home. That annoys me. They went home, then they saw on the news that Kirsty's mum, appealing to the public to help find her daughter. So they see this mum on the TV and maybe it pulled at their heartstrings, because that's when they told the police about Kirsty. So they left her out there just because they thought that, they might get into trouble for growing some weed. It's a bit shit. Come on. But at least they eventually did realize that it was morally wrong not to say something. Also, the relationship between the media, the police, and Kirsty's family was quite strained at times, because the media made the decision to publish reports that Kirsty's body had been found before it had actually been formally identified. The police were pretty annoyed about that, and they even vocally criticized the media publicly. Also, the family expressed how stressed they were by the pressure they got from the media during the several days that Kirsty's body remained formally unidentified. The media wanted to get their stories out ASAP, and they kept pushing the police and the family to let them do it. But yeah, in the end, they just did it anyway, without being told that they could. Okay, moving on from that. So the police looked into their leads, and they had said that hundreds of people have been considered suspects at one time or another, and a list of several hundred people have never been formally eliminated from the inquiry. Some of the possible suspects had also received media attention in relation to this case, because the media can't help themselves. The media even publicly said that Kirsty's parents were suspects. It's like, oh my God, did you need to do that? Because now, they get grief. That's enough to ruin anyone's reputation. And whenever they were asked if they killed their daughter, they would just say no. It is also really common for the police to look at the people that are closest to the victim. So I shouldn't really be surprised that Kirsty's parents were suspects, but what I feel is like maybe the media could have just kept their mouths shut, because it's normal for a family to be suspects. Also, the police did a full scene examination of Kirsty's house in the very early stages of her disappearance, which included luminol testing. There was nothing suspicious found in her house. So when the police did the search, they moved the Bentley family to a motel. Sid was not happy about this. He was a private, stubborn man who, he didn't like to be told. He suspected that society was increasingly under watch by Big Brother, and the search of his house felt like a violation. So when a detective asked for his car keys so that they could examine his ute, he kind of just flung them at the officer and stormed off. His already testy relationship with the police was never the same. It didn't really help the media back off when Kirsty's dad couldn't provide a strong alibi for when he was for the time that his daughter went missing. He first said that he had been in Christchurch and Littleton at the time that his daughter went missing, but then he said that he had hit his head on a cupboard door and forgotten that he'd actually been in Ashburton for part of the day. His exact whereabouts at the time still actually remain unknown. Yeah. Sid's family have said that they believe he might be embarrassed to admit to where he was. Maybe he was doing something that he shouldn't be. Maybe he was being unfaithful to his wife and didn't want that to come out. Maybe. But his family have been quite adamant that he wouldn't have hurt his child in any way. Maybe verbally when he's drunk, but they say that he wouldn't have hurt her. Police later talked to a retired British detective inspector called Chuck Burton, who said that in his opinion, the perpetrator was likely to be someone who knew her and maybe had been close to her based on the nature of the crime and the way that her body was found. She was neatly lay and put into the fetal position and like covered nicely kind of thing. Yeah. At first I was thinking it might be the boyfriend, but I don't know. There were also numerous sightings of cars similar to Sid's, her dad. He had a distinctive Holden Kingswood Ute. One was from a woman who was pulling out of a petrol station between Ashburton to the area where Kirsty was actually found. That put the Holden in the area at around 5 p.m. Yeah, that doesn't look good. Sid later called the woman. Yeah, he wanted to talk to her about it, but she was like, no, I'm not talking to you. So, yeah. The quality of the sightings left many things up in the air, and importantly, didn't rule out the involvement of her family in her death. Despite this, police never laid charges against Sid or John. They said there wasn't enough strong evidence, and police confirmed that they didn't believe Sid or John were actually involved. So in the months after Kirsty's death, police asked the public for information about a green combi van. It was a vehicle of interest. The van was described as a 1961 model set up to be used as a camper with a distinctive comma branding badge attached to the front. So this van was either blue or faded blue-green. It was last registered with the NZTA in 95. This type of van was commonly used by tourists and drifters at this time, and in many cases these vehicles were not registered. The van was rare because there were only two that matched this general description that were in New Zealand at this time. An experienced mechanic originally reported the van to police after seeing it in the area around the time that Kirsty went missing. And because of the distinctive nature of the van and the man's experience with them, he took special note of the van at the time and was able to give a highly detailed description of it. So the van was also seen by other witnesses in the Ashburton area in the weeks before Kirsty went missing. And there were reports it was also seen in the Camp Gully area, which is the area that her body was found. So police believed that such a distinctive vehicle could not go unnoticed by the public, and a sighting could actually lead to a break in the case. Many people came forward to police with possible sightings, but all were discounted as not really being the van that they were looking for. No further leads on this camper were ever revealed, and the van's never actually been found. Weird, eh? Because we have a really small country, like where is it? In addition to this, police distributed flyers asking for information on a girl seen near the van on Chalmers Avenue, close to where Kirsty had disappeared. So apparently someone saw a girl by this van. The girl was known to the dairy owners as a regular customer. However, despite this and repeated public requests by police, this girl was, nobody knows if it was Kirsty or just another random girl. It is kind of suspicious, right? Yeah. So in March 2017, media reported that police were investigating whether Russell John Tully, a local man who killed 2 staff members at the Ashburton Work and Income Office in 2014, may have been involved. Work and Income is where people go for help getting into work, and they also process benefit applications for people that are in need. It's run by our government. Yeah, I'm sure lots of countries have benefits. Ours is called work and income. Russell Tully had been known to camp in the area that Kirsty went missing. When he was questioned, he just strongly denied any involvement. In May 2018, police announced they had eliminated him from the inquiry. He had provided a detailed account of where he had been living and also working during the time that Kirsty went missing. Sadly, Sid passed away in 2015 without ever knowing who took his daughter's life. After this, also in 2015, an unidentified woman came forward to say that she suspected her ex-boyfriend had been involved in Kirsty's murder. Apparently, he had been a suspect in the original investigation, and they had both been interviewed by police and media at the time in relation to the case. According to an interview with this girlfriend, or ex-girlfriend, in 2015, her ex-boyfriend, while he was drunk, told her that he was responsible for Kirsty's death. He also apparently confessed like a bunch of times to his girlfriend. Yeah. I don't know anything else beyond that. That's all. That's the only information on that. So I don't know who this person was. Or, I don't know. Nothing's come from it. In 2014, Kirsty's case was transferred from Detective Inspector Greg Williams to Detective Inspector Greg Merton. At the time, he commented that the investigation was open and would continue to be until it was resolved. So when Sid died, his death briefly renewed public interest in this case. I guess we had kind of, not forgotten, but kind of forgotten, yeah, it's sad, about this case, as the years go on. In late 2018, almost 20 years after Kirsty's disappearance, Detective Inspector Merton announced that there had been advances in DNA testing that he hoped could lead to a break in the case. Then, items of evidence, including the dog lead and underwear that had been submitted for further testing. The case is still active. They're still working it, with Detective Inspector Merton stating in 2018 that the case is still open and being investigated. In July 2022, the New Zealand Police offered a $100,000 reward for information or evidence leading to leading to information that could identify and convict the person or persons responsible for Kirsty's death. Sid originally said that he had driven to Christchurch to drop off a water blaster and get some tools on the day that Kirsty vanished, after which he spent a couple of hours in Littleton before driving straight home. But police had possible sightings of him at a hotel in Ashburton at about 4 p.m. A witness said a man with an English accent who matched Sid's description was in the queue in the front of him buying cigarettes. A till receipt seemed to corroborate that account. Sid changed his story in October of 2000 after he apparently banged his head on that cupboard. He's like, oh, that's right, I wasn't blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So the new version of events had him coming back from Christchurch at about 2:30. He said that he was within 30 seconds of his house when he decided that, no, he needed to go for a drive to the beach because he had a migraine and he just wanted some fresh air. Confusingly, Sid retracted his change of story when spoken to again by the police not long before his death. He changed his story so much, which really does not help. It makes him look guilty, right? What do you guys think? It makes him look guilty, and it sucks because I don't know if he did it, but maybe the alcohol. Police said that he lied from the first night that Kirsty went missing. Maybe he was drunk. We forget things sometimes when we're drunk, and he would get really drunk. Police know where Sid was until 2:30 p.m. and clearly he was home to make the call to the police at 6:20 p.m. But where was Sid in between? That's still in dispute today. Police are still convinced that the scene where Abby tied to the tree was staged. Yeah. and they reckon it was staged to mislead the inquiry. They believe Abby was put there at around 6:30 p.m. and there was no evidence that puts Kirsty near this area where Abby was found. They believe her underwear was planted. They believe that the person who tied Abby up near the track had to have known this dog, and that's why Abby let them. Kirsty was found wearing a sarong, and police don't believe she would have gone walking in a sarong. She was known to walk in comfortable walking clothes, and what she was found wearing looked more like an outfit that you would wear to go out. Yeah, and she was also quite a tomboy, so maybe she was dressed to go see her boyfriend or something, I don't know. Her shoes also didn't contain any material from the river track. Yeah, doesn't look good. Police haven't ruled out a random killing, but they say it does not fit with the Abby scene and the careful way that Kirsty's body was hidden. Abby's discovery is one of the most puzzling parts of the case. Why wasn't she found the night of Kirsty's disappearance as searchers were looking in the area? And why was there no evidence of a struggle? Like, she would have struggled, right? If she was grabbed. And she would have had dirt under her shoes. The fact that she wasn't buried suggested that the killer was in a hurry, yet the choice of site indicated a determination that, to hide the body so she wouldn't be found for a long time. Also, John, Kirsty's brother, changed his story a bit as well. He said that he couldn't remember if Kirsty actually told him she was going for a walk or not. All this meant Sid and John, that they became significant persons of interest, and they continue to be today because police haven't been able to resolve key aspects of timing and placement. Jill is still mystified by why Sid lied. So Jill said, "I can only wonder if he was doing something he wouldn't have wanted to be publicly aired." Again, a very proud Englishman, he took his secret to the grave, whatever he was up to. Sid's story had significant inconsistencies, which he was caught on. Once those inconsistencies were discovered, that raised alarm bells for police, and he got a lot more attention. John, the brother, he lives overseas now and is finishing a doctorate in astronomy. He said that he is just trying to live his life as normal as possible. He understands that he remains a person of interest, and he finds it quite frustrating. He said that unfortunately his dad, for whatever reason, could not or would not clear himself, and therefore John couldn't be 100% cleared. He said that he didn't have anything to do with his sister's death, but there is nothing that he can do to clear his name, basically until the actual killer gets found. He has to wait. He just has to wait until the killer is found and he's cleared. We don't know if that's going to happen. He was formally interviewed by police about 3 or 4 times, and he said that he doesn't remember being pressed on any inconsistencies. He said, "I remember not seeing her leave, but I think I heard the gate shut. I can't remember if she told me she was going for a walk, or I just presumed it from hearing the gate shut." So you can get confused with things, John also said that he never asked his dad if he had killed his sister or what he was doing on that day. Like Jill, he believes that Sid's movements might have been embarrassing, but irrelevant. John wasn't into doing much of the same things as the other teenagers his age in Ashburton. He was quite a keep to himself kind of fella. He wasn't into partying or sports clubs like the other teenagers. He said that he definitely wasn't super sociable. He said that his family were kind of distant with each other, and most nights his parents would kind of just be in the living room watching TV while he was in his room, his sister was in her room, that kind of thing. I feel like that's like heaps of families do that, right? My family's a little bit different. We're all in each other's freaking pockets, but I sat down on the couch and I get kids jumping on me. But yeah, even my 17-year-old sitting on my lap last night. Go figure. John said that Kirsty was trying to be popular at school, and it was an embarrassment to have a nerd brother. That's just what he's saying though. But then John had spent most of the year at university, and suddenly having a brother at university was cool, so Kirsty would tolerate him. Remember, that's what he's saying. John said that his relationship with his dad soured because he called him out over spreading rumours about his mum's new partner. So the mum got a new partner. This partner was called Noel. The parents are separated at that stage. He said that his dad hated the rumours that people were spreading in Ashburton, but he was spreading rumours about this new boyfriend. So John apparently called him a hypocrite, and he got angry and they had a bit of an argument or whatever. So his father's alcoholism also made him more negative and withdrawn from his family. Alcoholism sucks. I'm a recovering alcoholic. If you've been watching my videos, I'm sure you know. It sucks. Like, really, really sucks. I hate it. Yeah, it's sad. This case truly is a frustrating one. We still don't know who took Kirsty's life. Hopefully one day the police will be able to figure it out and finally let Kirsty rest in peace. But we don't know. Anyone with information should phone police on 105 and reference Operation Kirsty, or call Crime Stoppers anonymously. It's up to you. I'll put the numbers up, 0800 555 111, but I'll put them up. Immunity from the prosecution could be considered for any accomplice not being the main offender. That's a good deal. So if you know anything, if you were there, come forward. The recent solving of cold cases, such as the 95 murder of Christchurch mum Angelina Blackmore, showed it was always possible for a secret that someone held for years and years and years to unravel. Someone out there knows the truth, and I urge them to do the right thing and finally come forward. If not for themselves, but for Kirsty and the people that love her. Come on. Seriously. Kiwis, we're meant to be awesome. Like, seriously, we're meant to be awesome. These people, not so awesome. So yeah, any New Zealanders watching, if the person who did this to Kirsty is on YouTube and types in the name of the person he killed or she killed and sees my video, come forward. Come forward. It's time. Seriously, it's time. You can't, no, that's not fair. This family needs to be able to move on. How would you feel if somebody did this to your loved one? Here you go. Okay, so that is today's story. Sad, sad, sad. But yeah. Anyway, that is me for today. I hope you all are having a wonderful morning, day, night, whatever it is where you are. It is currently night here. I've got a couple of ferns behind me. I was like, oh, my background looks boring. So I've got a couple of plant things. They look alright, hey? I think they look okay. Anyway, that's me. Have a great morning, day, night, blah, 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 blah. And I will be talking to you next time with another case. If you have any case suggestions, please let me know in the comment section down below. Absolutely. All right. Catch you later. Bye.